Welcome to this bonus episode of Timm Talk, the podcast, as of late, mostly about the DC animated universe, co-created by Bruce Timm. I am Chris Lord.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
And we are here this week with our first ever fully dedicated episode to Scooby-Doo, because the new animated movie Scoob dropped as of this recording literally last night, or I guess technically 2 nights ago, because Cameron started watching it fucking midnight on Thursday.
I did. It felt, there's a sense of normalcy being able to watch a movie on a Thursday, like a new movie on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
Like I made popcorn for myself. I don't usually, this is very dumb. I usually watch everything on my computer screen, and my TV screen, which is right in front of me, usually stays pretty idle. I'm like, no, I'm going to turn on the TV. I'm going to have popcorn. I'm going to watch a great animated film. And boy, howdy.
Did you
how many things could have gone wrong?
Did you arrange a series of Funko Pops in front of you so you had to just kind of slightly tilt your head to the side to look around someone?
Oh, that's smart. I didn't think about that.
Maybe occasionally turn around and shush the poster behind you like they're making too much noise to get that full movie going experience.
Oh, I don't have that much confidence to interact with someone in a movie theater.
Or at least give them the occasional passive aggressive glare.
Oh my God, so many passive aggressive glares.
So I take it that you maybe weren't super keen on this movie, Cameron.
Oh God, no. I will say, Let me say at the top, I don't think any of our listeners have kids, but if you are a listener that has a kid, on the Scoob website, there is this awesome 40 to 50 page packet of just activities you can do with your kids. It's cooking things, how to design fondant.
How to design what?
What's the decorative icing? Is that fondant?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't bake.
Neither can I.
Yeah.
This is just from YouTube videos. It's just a really, really cool packet that's a good weekend's worth of activities.
Okay.
So if anyone does have a young child or niece or nephew or cousin, I recommend downloading it because it is just kind of a really cool little fun activity book.
How many of the activities have you tried?
None of them, because I don't have a printer.
Foiled by technology.
Yep.
Once again. All right. Well, I'll make a note of that to put it down in the show notes of the packet in case someone wants to download it.
Now that my positive thing about this movie has been said.
Okay. Well, we do want to get into it, and obviously we're going to go full spoilers, although I feel like this movie is more or less kind of spoiler proof to a large degree, but maybe there are some fun surprises along the way. But before we do that, I mean, it's worth acknowledging something that we've been talking about a little bit, which is that this movie was chosen to be released straight onto video on demand, or SVOD, as we're going to probably call it throughout the episode, rather than do a theatrical release. Something we're seeing happen generally at the moment, especially kids entertainment. They're like, well, what the fuck? Let's just put it up. Anyways, because they'll still do hopefully decently well. So
I forgot to check. Did Artemis Fowl come out yesterday, or is that next week?
I have no idea because I don't care.
That is next week. Okay.
Okay. Don't give two shits. I never read the book, although I had a copy of it growing up. I never bothered to read it. I've heard it's fine. The movie looked terrible, so I just didn't really give a shit. But sometime soon. I mean, I feel like the conversation right now is primarily around trolls.
Right.
And then now I think this will continue the conversation.
Yes. And I had a conversation with a couple of people throughout the week. Big shout out to my mom. Always the harbor of knowledge.
Yeah. She knows what she's talking about.
She does.
Yeah.
And so
hi,
we
Cindy.
Hi, Mom. So we had a really nice talk because she used to work at Blockbuster, so she knows a lot of the internal stuff that the theaters have to go through, especially in this fight between streaming and theatrical stuff. And so she sent me a couple numbers which were really interesting. So in a theater setting, when a movie drops in theaters, first 10 days, studios get 90%. Then after the 10th day, it flips. Because 10 days, that's the first 2 weekends.
Oh, okay. So I guess I'd always thought it was a gradual changeover. That the percentage.
No, it is a hard flip.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and the number has drastically gone down over the years, which is why there's a very equal relationship between what percent the theater gets and the rise of ticket prices. Because the theater still has to, sustain itself. So you have that hard 10%. The studio is missing out on 10% of the profits from their eyes. When they go straight to digital, when it's Amazon and iTunes, the platform only takes 3% of the profit. So from a studio perspective, there's definitely a lot more to be gained going straight digital if they see similar numbers coming out of it.
Okay, yeah. So like if a movie people spend, like collectively, if an audience spends like $100 million on a weekend, which would probably be kind of high for video, but I mean that's what Trolls did, right?
Yeah, Trolls got $100 million opening weekend.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So if a movie's coming out straight to digital, it's $100 million. The studios are only losing 3% versus 10%. So obviously, if they're seeing similar numbers, why would they not want to do it this way?
Yeah, but it's also 3% forever. So there's never that flip.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so when you have movies that are like Avatar or like Greatest Showman or even Booksmart that have their bump later in their theatrical life, that's great for theaters because that means theaters get more money back. But for studios, they're just like, this is bullshit. That's supposed to be our money. And so when you look at those numbers, there's definitely like, you can see why the theaters and why AMC specifically is like puffing its chest out so much.
Yes, I guess the test will basically be to see if the actual numbers that are happening are close enough to a theatrical distribution to make it worth the studios wanting to do it this way going forward.
Yeah, but it's still something you can't even test right now because, as we talked about before, Trolls, a couple of reasons Trolls did so well. One, we haven't had a movie come out in 2 months. Two, kids have been locked inside for 2 months. Yes. Three, there was no competition.
Yes.
And so when you take away these three factors, which are very unique factors to the moment, will streaming still make the same kind of money?
And I think Scoob will be an indication of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this movie. Because we'll when we get into the full review, we'll get into it. But like, I would like to see more from this.
Yes.
So I'm hoping it does well. Like I'm glad we contributed to its weekend box office, if you want to call it that. But it's the way it rolled out was it was $20 for rental and $25 for like rent to buy, basically. Which is like that's definitely a lot for a one-off rental, but at the same time, that's at least for us in LA, that's a cost of one ticket. So yeah, that's one ArcLight ticket. Yeah. And at the same time, too, you have 48 hours. So I could easily, like, ping everyone else in my family who has our same Amazon login. I'm like, hey, if you want to watch Scoob, like, it's up for 48 hours. You can go do it. Yeah, I flat out bought it. Are you happy with that decision still, Cameron? Nope. No, what was even dumber is I forgot that through work I get all of WB films. So I bought it at, like, 11 p.m. Thursday. Yeah. And then at 12:01, I checked the app, and I'm like, fuck, it's already fucking up. It was up on your I couldn't have waited an hour. well, hey, you know what? Even if you weren't super hot in the movie, you contributed to its financial success, which is probably a good thing in the long run. Yeah. Well, okay. Do you have more to say on like the kind of the SVOD stuff here, or do you want to actually get into the review? I'm just trying. Like, I still don't know how you fix the situation. I don't know. It's certainly an interesting shift, but I mean, I think if you're talking like broad changes, I definitely think we're going to see, in general, more stuff being in more premium style content, stuff that would normally get put in a theater being targeted for video on demand or streaming platform release. I think we are going to see a reduced theatrical window in general going forward. Oh, absolutely. And those are trends that are already happening that I think this just accelerates. Yeah, because my fear is what's going to happen is if these streaming videos continue to do well, which, I still want them to do well, it's going to make a stronger argument for the theater to kind of for the studio to fight the theaters more. And I could potentially see them arguing a smaller percentage for the theater, which in turn would raise ticket prices,
which in turn would make more people want to go to streaming, which would
Yeah.
just continue this cycle until theaters are, you know, either this incredibly luxurious experience where you're paying like $65 for a ticket.
Yeah.
There's
or
like a
they're gonna end up
manicure and
becoming-
pedicure involved while you're
Yeah.
watching.
Hey,
Someone is
that's
feeding
not so
you
bad,
this like
actually.
luxury food.
Yeah, it's just grapes. Someone just come hand delivers grapes right to your mouth.
Yeah.
Although that won't work now. Maybe they have gloves on.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we might see more subscription-based models. You know, in this vein of either the AMC method or Alamo Drafthouse, kind of does a
Yeah.
similar sort of thing too. We'll probably see a bit of that. I think also with the because the Paramount decrees actually did get revoked, right? We talked about it.
Yeah, they did.
So with that happening, I wouldn't be surprised if we see studios and streaming distribution start to buy out theaters. I mean, we already saw a bit of that with Amazon contemplating, or in the news at least, Amazon considering buying out AMC theaters.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to see that start to come into play too. And I think what ultimately this boils down to is it's just going to become siloed content and distribution. That if you want to watch stuff from Disney, you're going to have to go to a Disney distribution method or
Disney
exhibition house.
Cinemark.
Yeah, you're going to have to go to a Disney theater, or you're going to have to go to a Disney streaming service. And, you know, the other studios that don't have that built-in money base or like distribution system are
they're just gonna
probably
get
going
absorbed.
they're going to get consolidated, and they're going to have to like start teaming up basically to keep up with Netflix, Amazon, Disney.
Warner.
And so ultimately this is just going to be worse for everybody.
I think if in an ideal world, what I think they should do to kind of compromise on both sides is the theater chain should get a higher percentage. I'm going to say 15% for 3 weekends. The studio still gets the majority of the money for 3 weekends. So that would be what, 15 days? No, whatever.
Yeah, like 18 days.
18 days.
Like that.
Yeah, 18
Like
days.
that, yeah.
And then theater gets 95% after that, but studio gets to put it online right after the 3 weeks.
Interesting.
So then that would, since they're not making as much in theaters, that will cause theaters to want to turn movies quicker. Which will make the studios happier because now they can show more of their content. Mm-hmm. So instead of having this like chokehold of like, you have to show Storks 3 if you want to show Fast 9.
I don't want to see either.
Exactly.
Also, I'd love for those two franchises to overlap.
Yeah. But yeah, I think if you have this kind of quicker cycle of film, then there won't be as much of this kind of bullying from studios of like, hey, you have to show A in order to show B. I'm like, well, we have time to show both now because we're only showing this for 3 weeks and we're only showing that for 4 weeks.
I agree with you. That's probably the right answer. The reason it won't happen is it requires both studios and theater chains to make compromise and to make concessions, and they won't do that.
I know.
So I don't know. I mean, I am very curious to see what ends up being the result of this. And you and I are recording on the Saturday after it came out, so there's really no box office numbers yet to talk about. But you know, certainly on our next proper episode, we'll get into that a little bit. But I don't know. Should we talk about the movie itself now?
Let's talk about this movie. I don't even want to call it a Scooby-Doo film.
Okay, so let me. I'm gonna go first because I feel like I need to like make sure you have a nice, clear, long runway to really get
start warming up over here.
Your rant out here, and I think it's very clear that you have like a much deeper affinity for Scooby-Doo and Hanna-Barbera at large than I do. Although, to be fair, I love Scooby-Doo. Mm-hmm. Always have, but it's not necessarily like super high up in my my list of fandoms. You know, it's not up there with my James Bonds, my Batmans, my Star Wars, and my Star Trek.
And I honestly, I don't. Before recording this podcast, I wouldn't have said that it's in like my top 5 fandoms either.
But I think you have a deeper passion for it.
I have a passion for it for sure, and I think I've just kind of been shoehorned into this like crazed Scooby-Doo fan.
I mean, Cameron, if someone's been doing the shoehorning, it's been you.
I mean, I know where it started. I know it was before we started Timm Talk. I was on Johnny's podcast where I was the special guest to talk Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, but there was also our very famous Scooby-Doo bait.
Yes. Yeah, but that was after the Johnny podcast.
I don't even what were we arguing about? Wasn't I saying I think
You
I was
said
the live
Scooby-Doo
action movies
2
are
is better than
shit.
Scooby-Doo 1.
Scooby-Doo 2 is better than Scooby-Doo 1.
But it's not. That's why
You know
get.
you know who else agrees with me? Mr. Sunday Movies. So
Yeah, well, what does he know? He's just some Australian prick.
But to be fair, Mason agrees with you.
That's right.
So, for those
King
of you that don't know,
Maso.
this is a reference to the Weekly Planet, the podcast that inspired ours. They just did a couple episodes on Scooby-Doo. But I think you have a deeper stranglehold on this fandom than I do. And I will say this. I thought this was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that my sort of cynical read on it is that Warner Brothers was trying to figure out what IP they have to expand out into multi-film franchise. Looked at Hanna-Barbera and went, okay, there's tons of stuff here. How do we get a Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe off the ground while our most famous character is Scooby-Doo? So why don't we basically make a Hanna-Barbera movie in the loose guise of a Scooby-Doo film and use the Scooby element to appeal to fans and to market it and to get butts in seats. But really, it's not actually going to be about Scooby-Doo.
Right. It's about Mark Wahlberg doing his best Ryan Reynolds impression.
Exactly. And I think if that's the way they were going, I can't necessarily fault them for that because it is a smart strategy. And I think it's also reflected in the fact that in this movie, I enjoyed the broader Hanna-Barbera stuff much more than I enjoyed the Scooby element of it. Because I think the Scooby element was pretty slim.
Yes.
For the most part. I will say this, though, that the first 15 minutes of this movie or so, maybe 15, 20 minutes of this movie, I absolutely loved.
Oh, I will say the first third of the movie, like up to them getting chased through the amusement park.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a fair point.
I was giddy. I was so excited. It took me, twice as long to get through this part because I was pausing every 10 seconds trying to look in the background for something.
Everything, yeah. And okay, so a quick kind of plot synopsis here. Like this movie very quickly on shows us the origins of how Scooby and Shaggy met as like a kid and a puppy, and then how they go on to meet Fred, Daphne, and Velma and form Mystery Inc. And then it jumps forward years later, and they're trying to figure out how to progress things forward. And it's pointed out to them, and we'll get to this particular cameo later on.
Oh yeah,
it's pointed out to them by a potential investor that Scooby and Shaggy might be the weak links in all of this. And so at that point, it basically separates Scooby and Shaggy from the rest of the crew. Scoob and Shag get not abducted, but they end up teaming up with the new Blue Falcon and Dino Mutt to then try and stop Dick Dastardly. And the movie keeps the Mystery Inc. separate basically all the way up until the climax of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of get to some degree why. I think they were in a bit of a tight spot making this because we'd already had so many versions of Scooby-Doo, including the two theatrical movies, that I think they were trying to find a way to do something a little bit different. I don't necessarily think they succeeded at it, but I get why they were trying to do it. But the fun thing is that first, third of the movie or so, like it really hits all of the beats of a Scooby-Doo story, like super, super quickly. Like the team meets up, they discover a haunted house, they think there's a ghost going on, they discover that it's, a scheme, and it's revealed, and they form the team. And then there is a shot-for-shot recreation of the original Scooby-Doo intro sequence.
That. Oh man, I was so excited.
That for me, that goes up there on the list of like movie moments that just had like big stupid fucking grin on my face. It's up there with the moment when they played the Power Rangers theme in the Power Rangers movie. We're just like, you know what? I know what they're doing. They're emotionally manipulating my yearning for nostalgia, but I'm letting it happen, and I'm absolutely 100% on board for it. All of that stuff I thought was actually pretty fun. I thought, in general, the characterizations were pretty decent. A lot of them were a little hollow. Yep. I thought of the Scooby Gang, Fred was the best.
Interesting.
I thought Zac Efron was doing a great job.
I think voice-wise, yeah, Zac Efron is fucking spot on as Fred.
Yeah, he does this great, just sort of like well-intentioned but a little bit daft Fred. Everyone else was like fine. Like Amanda Seyfried is Daphne. I didn't even know that was her for the most part because she doesn't really have much to do.
Yeah, I feel like Daphne and Fred both get very short-ended in this movie.
I would agree with that. I would say Daphne especially because at least Fred gets some pretty fun lines in there. Like Fred gets some of the best lines, if not the best line in the whole movie. I thought Gina Rodriguez was good as Velma. Like Velma is just kind of like Velma-ing her way through the whole thing. Will Forte, fine as Shaggy. I mean, I guess I'm a little bit biased because I love the fact that Matthew Lillard's been doing it for such a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
And so the fact that he wasn't was disappointing. And Frank Welker's always great. He was Scooby, but the Scooby stuff didn't work for me as well as like the Dick Dastardly stuff. I actually really liked Dick Dastardly in this.
Okay.
I think it helps too that it's Jason Isaacs, who
you adore.
I adore. I absolutely adore Jason Isaacs.
We saw him a couple months ago, pre-quarantine.
We did. Oh my God, he's just so dreamy, even in person. And I've been watching Star Trek, so he's one of the major characters in Star Trek Discovery season 1. So I've just been getting my Jason Isaac fix left and right. Love him. I liked his story. I liked his characterization. He was super fun. I thought some of the humor was pretty good. I liked the fact that it wasn't the real Blue Falcon, that it was like Brian Blue Falcon's inept son, and that Dynamite hates working with him.
Yeah.
I thought that part of it worked for me pretty well, but I can see where maybe your criticism comes from, if I were to guess, is that it's not really a Scooby movie.
It's not a Scooby-Doo movie. Not at all. You're forgetting the other pointless cameo in there. Not even cameo. He was heavily featured in the advertising. Captain Caveman. Yeah,
really well played by Tracy Morgan, but completely underutilized.
You were trying to be so nice about this movie.
Look, I am... Cameron, I feel like the podcast thrives on balance.
Yeah, so that's true.
Oftentimes
you're gonna have to be a lot nicer if you want to balance this out.
I figure out what your stance is, and then I just take the opposite.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fair.
As much as I possibly can. So I'm gonna do my best to try and be the voice of positivity / measured criticism for this movie.
Great.
Do you want to should I let the leash go? Should I just let you go at this point?
I will. I'll start off with the good things, because there's a couple great cameos right at the top. Like when we first meet Shaggy, he's standing in front of a place called Casey's Creations. Obviously, a nod to Casey Kasem.
Now, I seem to recall, wasn't Casey Kasem a vegetarian, and as a result, Shaggy was a vegetarian?
And so that was one of the first things. I'm like, well, this is weird, because when we first meet Shaggy, he's making a sandwich for Scooby. It's gummy worms, tater tots, ketchup leather, and liverwurst.
He would have had liverwurst if he didn't have it. Yeah, and I was with you. I was like, I was actually like looking at the sandwich, like, do I see meat? Do I see any meat in there? I don't. Okay, and then he ends up
I did pause and Google, and I don't know how, but there are recipes for vegan liverwurst. I don't know who would want that. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's a balance here. But then Scooby comes in and he puts all the meat on the sandwich. And I'm like, okay, so this is not Casey Kasem Shaggy.
Within 3 minutes, you were out. You're like, Shaggy's not a vegetarian.
I let it go. Because they changed Shaggy's character. Not like if you just know surface Shaggy, it's the same character. But if you're really greedy for the details, like I am, like. The reason Mystery Inc. works is Shaggy's family.
If you're an insane Scooby fan like Cameron.
Excuse me?
If you're a deep, deep Scooby fan like Cameron.
Yes. if you know Scooby, you know Shaggy's family is rich, and they're the ones that fund all the Mystery Inc. adventures.
Yes.
And so the point the point of that they're looking for, a sponsor or an investor doesn't make sense because it's supposed to be his parents.
Right.
But it's fine. We can change Shaggy a little bit. That's totally fair. Like you said, that first 15 minutes when they do their first interaction and their first mystery, that was beautiful. I loved it. It was a pup named Scooby-Doo come to life, and it made me so happy.
And the great thing is that it hits so many beats in such a short period of time. Like you get like an instant sense of who the characters are based on their Halloween costumes, like Fred and just like the
Fred
generic,
is literally a knight in shining armor.
Yeah, he's a knight in shining armor. Daphne is referred to as Wonder Woman in like a pseudo Wonder Woman kind of like knockoff costume. And then I love
I knew this was your favorite part.
I love that Velma is Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yep, RGB.
Who is one of the
RBG.
Most wonderful people in the entire world, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I love that little moment. I love they go into the house and there's like, a fake ghost, and I love that like Daphne, even for just a split second, becomes the damsel in distress, even if it's like her just like falling behind the rest of them and getting harassed by the ghost. Like that they had that nod in there without going too overboard with it was great.
Yeah. And from this point, in my mind, I'm set for another like Teen Titans Go to the Movies. Like that was the bar I was expecting for this, because it's still Warner Brothers.
Yes.
Warner Brothers is great at shoehorning in these like very creative references, because we see it in the Lego Movie, we saw it a lot in Teen Titans Go to the Movies, and Hanna-Barbera has probably not as big of a backlog as DC Comics, but a pretty large backlog for fans. Yeah, for fans to like pick apart.
Yeah, and also like it had the whole movie has a fairly decent run of like clever self-aware jokes in there. Like I thought it was amazing that when Shaggy is like lonely because he doesn't have any friends, he just like keeps cycling through different music genres, and every song is all about being super lonely. He gets like a one is the loneliest number on there.
Yeah, those are Backstreet Boys.
The Backstreet Boys, and then he starts to listen. I clocked that too. Like, Cameron's gonna love the Backstreet Boys.
Show me the meaning of being lonely. Yep.
And then I love that he listens to a podcast from Ira Glass, who name checks himself.
Yeah.
To go out there and like go find friends, because it's like the whole point of the world. Like I thought that was fun. I liked when they're out on Halloween night and the hoodlums attack, and they're all like super like health conscious hoodlums who are taking his candy.
That was hilarious.
Not to just be like goons, but to like point out the fact like candy's bad for their health. I'm like, okay, like I get where they're going with this. Like it's it's got like a self-aware comedy thread running through it. It knows what Scooby-Doo is. It knows how to like play these elements in a way that's super fun. I think that humor didn't necessarily succeed throughout the rest of the movie entirely, but
I just don't think it was balanced well. Like you would have there was like that shift from dramatic moment to comedy so quick and so like it felt like offbeat almost.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the what is it? The audio cues. Like all the sounds were the same from Scooby-Doo. It's the like when they like start running, they have
it's like like the bats are like
like that was very nostalgic, and that was cool to have like audio nostalgia.
Yeah.
I think the movie starts to take a downturn when we meet our special guest, 2002's very own Simon Cowell.
I am 100% in agreement with you on that. They are looking for a potential investor in Mr. Inc., and it's Simon Cowell.
So here was right off the bat when we meet Simon. There's something, and I don't know if you caught this. There's something about him that just looked off.
He looked like he was animated realistically.
Yes, and so that was one of my big problems, and it was the same with the security guard right at the top of the film. They're animated with human facial proportions. Everything is kind of shrunk in on the face, and then when you jump cut from him to Fred or him to Scooby, who have these very stylized, caricatured faces, it looks so off. And then I'm like, why? And he also looks very like Polar Express-y. Like his face is just like a little too cylindrical.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it. I'm like, if you took a screenshot of this and told me it was from Shrek 2, I wouldn't bat an eye. And then I remembered Simon Cowell was also the special guest in Shrek 2.
Oh my
and
God,
looked
that's
almost
right.
the exact same. From fucking 18 years ago.
I don't, and that's the thing. It's like at times the movie has really smart self-aware jokes. We made a couple references to them. I have some more later I'll bring up, but then there are times when it's like it has these like quote unquote timely references, and that's probably the most egregious of all of them. It's like, why the fuck is Simon Cowell in this movie? Like,
Yeah.
it felt like such an unnecessary addition. Like I wasn't sure who that joke was for, or it was meant to be a joke. I'm like, this could be literally anybody.
Yeah, and also like they even make like a joke towards the end about like how, you know, he doesn't have time to find both Kelly Clarkson and take over the world. Yeah. It's like obviously they're bringing him in because of American Idol still, but American Idol is now a Disney franchise.
There's that. And then also it hasn't been I mean, it's still ongoing obviously, but like,
yeah, it hasn't
Kelly
been relevant
Clarkson,
in forever.
Yeah, it's not relevant at all. And so like that's why I was a little bit surprised that was there to begin with. And I was like, okay, like that was the moment where I'm like, oh, this is probably not a good sign.
Yeah. So that, but you know, again, I looked past it. I'm still here. I'm still in it. Where are my notes? Yeah. So then they go bowling and we meet the robots who at the top are the fucking cutest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then it turns into a fucking Illumination film.
That is the exact same note that I have, is that I think there are pieces in here that elevate it above something like an Illumination, but otherwise Warner's just decided to do their version of an Illumination film. And like the animation style is like heightened, but a little bit generic.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine you're referencing the fact that like the little robots are clearly like their attempt at making minions.
Yeah. And I think we have three stories, technically 3.5 stories, all kind of mushed into this one blob. And I think all three of them could have been their own movie. You have the Scooby Gang film of just doing it as wonky as Teen Titans Go to the Movies, where it's a Scooby movie, but the plot is them trying to like get public enough to get sponsors to fund their adventures. Like that's fucking hilarious.
That would be really funny, yeah.
And then you have Dick Dastardly, who's having this like, basically Despicable Me kind of movie, where he's this bad guy wanting to do bad things, but he's only doing them to get his dog back.
Yeah, I liked that element. So I watched it as my parents, specifically because my dad laughs like Muttley. Like we always call him Muttley because he has that same like kind of laugh. And so when it became clear pretty early on that like Muttley wasn't going to be in it, we were
immediately like Muttley's dead. I'm like, what the fuck is this film?
Yeah,
you can't kill the best sidekick.
Muttley's not there, and then it becomes pretty quickly apparent that he's going to be there in some capacity because they keep making references to him. And by the time he eventually showed up, I loved the dynamic between Dick Dastardly and Muttley.
Yes, that was very cute.
It was really
almost
cute.
As much
really
as like
funny.
Maybe this should have been great, not in the last 15 minutes of the film.
Well, and I mean, so yeah, like I agree with you because I liked the Dick Dastardly stuff. I thought his characterization was fun. I love that he like ultimately really just kind of cared about Muttley, but also was totally using him. Mm-hmm. Like the flashback scene where he's explaining how Muttley got trapped in hell, because that is the plot of this film. He's like, oh, like I told him not to go, but he insisted on it, and it's him like forcing the dog to go through the portal, sort of stuff. Like that all like worked really well for me. I would agree with you, but it doesn't. It could have been its own thing, I think.
Yeah, so like that could have been a film, and then the fucking Blue Falcon stuff is its own movie in its own right.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy this movie is an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. I think the Blue Falcon story and the 12-minute cameo they have in Dexter's Lab back in 1999 is a better representation of Blue Falcon and Dynamite.
There's a Blue Falcon cameo in Dexter's Lab?
There is, because Dexter tampers with Dynamite and accidentally turns him evil. And then him and Blue Falcon have to team up and try and stop him.
I had no idea.
That was my first introduction to Blue Falcon.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, here it is. Oh, that's so crazy. I didn't realize that was a thing. But like, again, I like the story they're doing with Blue Falcon.
I agree. I think it's hilarious that it's now the son of the Blue Falcon.
Yeah.
Who's just kind of this like social media asshole.
And I thought that having him voiced by Mark Wahlberg was like on the nose, but in a totally effective way.
Here's what I realized, especially at the end monologue between him and Dynamite. He has the exact same storyline as Green Lantern in the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie.
Which I have not seen.
That's good. So. To the point of Dynamite even has I wrote it down. Dynamite has a line that is almost identical to Carol in the Green Lantern movie. The line is, the ring didn't see that you were fearless. It saw you had the ability to overcome fear. It saw that you were courageous, which you are.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the same story there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the sort of like meta element that I thought was super fun was that his dad was like the real hero, and now he's just like this muscled out, vainglorious buffoon wearing the suit, dealing with like serious imposter syndrome. I love that like Shaggy literally points that out to him and uses the phrase imposter syndrome.
Yeah. I
liked that Dynamite was just like constantly annoyed having to work with this absolute bell end. And I thought that the casting of Mark Wahlberg there worked. Like I don't know. I did
when we first meet him. It's like so fucking good because the guy is so vain. Like he is Marky Mark.
And like I think there's an element of Mark Wahlberg's persona that is aware of that and like plays it up a little bit, but maybe isn't aware of it enough to fully justify being.
I feel like
sort of style of humor. Like this to me kind of reminds me of like my favorite era of The Rock, when he knew exactly what he was and who he was, and he was always playing to some degree against his own characterization. I thought that element here was pretty fun.
Yeah, I feel like there had to have been a joke that was scrapped of just like a prop in the background where it's a magazine cover with new Blue Falcon in just...
the Calvin Kleins?
The Calvin Kleins. It's the mask and the Calvin Kleins, the same pose. And I'm like, that has to, like, someone had to have made that.
I'm totally going to look up and see if that's a thing, because I'm going to be honest, I want to see it.
I'm sure it's not, because I paused the movie so much trying to find all the little cameos references.
I'm not saying it's in the movie.
Yeah, but someone has drawn it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not seeing it immediately, but I'm going to hunt this down. If I can find myself some inappropriate fan art of the Blue Falcon and Calvin Klein's, I will share it with the world.
Yeah, so these three films, or these three storylines, are all completely independent films, and all three feel incomplete because they're competing with each other. And then don't even get me fucking started on the 30-minute detour that is Captain Caveman.
Yeah, he felt the most shoehorned in.
They spun a wheel of just which character can we put in here to pad out the film, and it just happened to land on Captain Caveman. It could have been Space Ghost, it could have been Hong Kong Phooey, it could have been fucking Jabberjaw, the Pussycats would have been hilarious. Frankenstein Jr. gets a couple references.
Yeah, I saw Frankenstein Jr. in the background.
Grape Ape could have been in there.
Yeah, he's in there. There's a moment when they're on the run in the amusement park and they're trying to blockade a door, and they use a Hong Kong Phooey arcade game.
Yeah, that fucking made my heart glow.
And there's a Hex Girls poster off on the side. Like,
did you catch the other poster?
No, what was it?
There's a Banana Splits poster there as well.
I don't know the Banana Splits.
Banana Splits was their live action show from the 60s.
Oh, okay.
That Hanna-Barbera did, good. Yeah. Which had this weird, like, horror remake this past year.
That sounds kind of...
It's like a small indie studio put it out. But yeah.
There's lots of little things along the way, like they're driving through town and there's like a Hannah's restaurant right next to like a Barbera's dry cleaner. It's like little things like that I enjoyed.
Yeah, stuff that we loved. I mean, we talked forever in Teen Titans Go to the Movies about the little stuff in the backgrounds.
Yeah.
The mustache that is only on for like 12 frames. Like that kind of humor for fans means so much. And especially when you have this franchise that like so many generations have grown up on, it's something where like, you know, a dad can tell, like a grandfather can tell his grandkid of like, oh, that's a joke from when I was your age.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like after the halfway point of the movie, these references didn't exist anymore.
Yeah. They kind of stopped doing the Hanna-Barbera references. They definitely put in other like moments that just feel a little bit weird and out of the blue. And like, again, like I think at one point, like there's just a Ludacris song, right? Just thrown in there for like no reason while they're like trying to fly off in the Blue Falcon. I was like, is this Ludacris right now?
Yeah, so he was talking about music really quick. This is one of the other things. It is a staple of Scooby-Doo properties and kind of just like action films of the recent to have like a great pop song go on at the beginning of a fight.
Yeah.
And I was so excited for it because, like, you know, when we finally get to Cerberus, this giant 3-headed ghost dog.
Oh, yeah, because Dick Dastardly's trying to, like, open a portal to hell to retrieve Muttley.
Yeah.
And he needs Scooby, who's the descendant of Paratus?
Yes.
Who was Alexander the Great's dog.
Mm-hmm. So we're ramping up for this great action sequence, and then it's just, like, pretty, like, average score still in the background.
Yeah.
And what I think, if they wanted to tie in the previous point better, what I think they should have done is like realize that they can't win the fight, and then you have this like weird music score come in, and then the pop song comes in, and fucking Captain Caveman comes flying in on like a pterodactyl, and you know, have him be part of this fight. Why isn't he part of this fight?
Because he just needed to be there to show that it was going to be like a broader world than these characters. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't fully capitalize on its own potential.
Yeah, like all of these could have been 20-minute stories on like the HBO Max. Like if they did an HBO Max anthology of just like a Hanna-Barbera universe.
Yeah.
Which I think honestly would be better than what we got now. Like all four of these could have been great, you know, 20 to 30 minute episodes of their own thing.
No, I do agree with you on that. Like this felt like they were trying to sell a Scooby movie. They were trying to write a Wacky Racers movie and a Blue Falcon movie. They were trying to squeeze in a Captain Caveman story while also trying to just rip off Illumination.
Mm-hmm.
And in each of those independent things is either good or fine, but as a whole, it is a bit of a jumbled mess.
Yeah. Yeah, my first note in my notes is just, this isn't a Scooby movie. Warner, you messed up.
I don't disagree with you on that. I don't disagree at all. I mean, so... there are okay, but I do want to talk like some other little things that I did enjoy though, because like I kind of I finished watching this like, okay, that was fine, and then I was messaging back and forth with my friend Ted, and he had some thoughts which we'll kind of get to at the end, but I was like, okay, I was trying to remember, okay, what are the things that I liked, and so I actually liked a lot of the humor through here. There's like some pretty fun references. Like when Dick Dastardly is trying to say who he is to Scooby, and he keeps saying, "No, my name's Dick," and he goes, "Rick? No, Dick. Rick?" Like I thought that was pretty fun. I liked when Shaggy and Blue Falcon were trying to escape from the little monsters, and Shaggy made a comment about how he was going to go drop some F-bombs because he pulled like the Falcon bombs off the belt. Like, I thought that was like a clever little joke. I liked that, was it Dick Dastardly refers to Fred as the poor man's Hemsworth?
Yeah. And he says which
like,
one,
wait,
Chris or Liam?
Chris or Liam.
And I was waiting for the Luke drop.
Yeah, oh, poor Luke Hemsworth.
Yeah.
But I think the best line in the whole movie, and again, it's from Fred, is when they are trying to track down, when the remaining part of the gang is trying to track down Scooby and Shaggy, and Fred lists off this whole like diatribe of information about Blue Falcon, but he also doesn't know what meters are. And Velma says, like, how do you know so much about superheroes and know nothing about the metric system? And Fred's response is, because I'm an American male.
Yeah. I mean, I plug this show constantly, but there's the web show Actually.
Yes.
Where the last question is always life skills. Mm-hmm. Where they have these very in-depth, it's 30 minutes, these incredibly in-depth, nerdy questions. And then the last question is like, when jumping a car, how do you attach the cords?
Positive, negative, negative, positive.
No.
Yes.
No, because the negative needs to be grounded.
Cameron, when was the last time you jumped a car?
Never, but I know that's not right.
I did it last week.
No, but you don't. It's not positive, negative, or not negative, positive, whatever you said. Because you need one of them to be the grounding cord.
Yeah, but the thing is on some cars, especially older cars, the negative port is basically just a grounding platform anyways. Like the negative mount runs from the battery straight to a grounding point on the engine block or the body of the car.
Okay, well mine doesn't, because I had someone jump my car and they did that and it shot sparks.
Yeah. I'm just saying I'm right.
Yeah, we're both right. But yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite aspects of the game is like, it's incredibly nerdy, and then it's information of like stuff you should probably know. Like one of the questions is like, what is a Roth IRA and why should you open one? And the couch is just silent.
Silent. Yeah, like
it's like, you just told me which word from The Simpsons has made it into Webster's dictionary, but you can't tell me what a Roth IRA is.
Isn't a Roth IRA is when it takes the money out pre-tax and then it's taxed at the point when you withdraw it? Or is it the other way around?
That sounds right.
I don't know. I just learned these things and have subsequently forgot them.
Yeah.
But so I know I liked some of the humor in there. I liked the moment when Scooby and Shaggy are on the run from the robots at the bowling alley and they jump behind the counter and they like do their famous bit of like pretending to work at a restaurant.
Yes, I loved that. Like that felt the most genuine Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I love that moment. I love when the mystery machine gets destroyed and Fred gets really pissed off and he grabs the spare tire mount, the flower on it like a shield, and then he pulls an ascot out of nowhere and ties it on. I'm like, yes! The ascot came back. It was gone within like 30 seconds, but the fact they like gave a moment to the ascot, I thought was really fun and clever.
I think my favorite line of the film was the bowling alley person talking to the gang of where Scooby and Shaggy went. It's like there was this talking dog and then this gangly dude that has a habit of saying the word like at the start of every sentence, almost as if a middle-aged man had the idea of how a hippie would talk. And I'm like, oh, that's so good.
See, like that's the thing is, I feel like the writers had something clever here and were stuck trying to make a different kind of movie. And
it was a committee film. It was definitely like a movie by committee.
And I think that it's kind of famously that's what happened to James Gunn on the first live action Scooby-Doo movie, where it's like he wrote a script that was a little bit darker, more satirical, more self-aware. And it got a little bit muted over the course of the production and by studio notes. And I think...
I don't know what you're talking about.
And that's why it's becoming a stupid, obscene, asinine mess. And I think there's an element of that here as well, where it's like, I think the elements of some really good stories are in here, but they're not there, which like leads to... Overall, the way I felt about this movie is the way I felt about, like, this is an unfavorable comparison, but the Ghostbusters reboot.
Okay.
Which is, I watched the movie and I'm like, okay, I don't really like this. I think when it's being its own thing, it's better than when it's trying to remind you that a better Ghostbusters film exists. But I like enough of this world and these characters that I would like to see a second movie that isn't so committee driven to make it palatable for everyone. And that's how I feel about this. Like, I hope this does well enough that we get to see a sequel that focuses a little bit more just on Scooby and the gang, because I like the characterizations of them enough here to want to see more. I would love to see this spin off into like a Wacky Racers movie, or in particular Wacky Racers movie, but also maybe a Blue Falcon movie. I would love to see, you know, maybe they get a Blue Falcon movie where he teams up with Hung Kung Fooey or something like that, or like El Kabang or something, like whatever.
Fucking twit.
I want to see more from this world, because I got enough here that I liked, but I didn't necessarily like this.
Yeah. And so another thing that frustrates me about this is I agree. I think this does, obviously this is the jumping off point for a greater universe.
We think.
And I assume the numbers will be there, because similar to Trolls, there's nothing else to do this weekend.
It's absolutely true.
Except watch Avatar, which is back on Netflix.
It's back on Netflix.
But what frustrates me about this is we have a fucking template already set up from the 1970s Scooby-Doo Go to the Movies, or whatever the fucking Scooby-Doo movies, the Scooby-Doo movies, that's what it is, where you have the gang meets celebrity guest A. The gang is following, storyline B. Celebrity guest comes in with storyline A, and then the two, A and B storylines intertwine, and it's solved in a nice 20-minute package. Mm-hmm. Why can't they just do that? Why couldn't that have just been the Blue Falcon thing?
Because it does, like...
I don't understand why they needed to separate the Scooby Gang for so long. Because, like, that made me so upset of, like, they were together as adults. They were together not even 6 minutes.
Yeah, I know. But okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here slightly.
How dare you?
While you have your release a Snyder Cut-esque rant.
I don't know. I honestly think, like, if they would have added one scene at the beginning, that I could have been fine passing that note off. Where you just open, so you have the opening shot, you have the montage, and then go to the opening of the live action Scooby-Doo film, where it's the gang kind of at each other's throats trying to solve a mystery.
See, the problem with that is it's already been done. And
yeah, but it's so good.
But
the Joker's already been done. Batman's already been done.
Yeah, but also, like, we keep seeing diminishing returns when they keep trying to do more of the same stuff. And I think their intent here was to try and give us something different. I agree with you that in doing that, it didn't really give us a Scooby movie, even though that's how they advertised it.
Okay, well then let me rephrase. Instead of doing it exactly like it was in the first one, lessen that idea, but now it's just a rift between the gang and Scooby and Shaggy. So it's no longer all of them fighting each other. Now there's a clear divide between the 3 and the 2. And then you have celebrity guests that's not Simon Cowell come in. Literally anybody else.
Literally anybody else.
Come in and then just kind of like accentuate that divide, which makes the idea of the 2 wanting to go join another team more palpable.
I think the reason they didn't do that was because at the end of the day, the divide between Scooby and Shaggy was like the crux of the whole movie. And like
but then you can play, then focus it on Shaggy a little bit more. Like, you've seen him at his lowest, and his fear is going back to that isolation again.
Yeah, and that's like what he does here, is that he goes back to that place and he becomes like really like petty and difficult, and he kind of ends up becoming part of the problem. Like, look, it's not great. I'm just saying, like, I don't necessarily like the choices they make, but I understand why they made them.
Stop being rational. Fucking fight me.
It's just so much more fun this way, Cameron. It's so much more fun to give your bluster nothing to fight against. Here, do you want me to say some things I didn't like?
Sure.
Okay. I hated they did the beam in the sky moment.
Yeah.
This one was green, not blue. I hated that the movie ended in a really bizarre dance sequence with Blue Falcon as a DJ.
Yeah.
That felt very Illumination. One of the notes, like I said earlier, it was just ludicrous ? Actually, I have that twice on here. Ludicrous ? And I think sometimes their jokes were a little bit on the nose. So like there's that moment when I think it's what, Blue Falcon and Fred are having an argument and like Velma's trying to break it up and just literally just says the line toxic masculinity like out of context. It's like, okay, you already hit the nail on the head. Like that's what we're seeing here is like two versions of toxic masculinity butting against each other. We didn't necessarily need to have someone literally say the phrase.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like that lines up with Warner Brother animation humor. Like that's something I could hear Starfire saying to Robin, in there, or like, you know, some kind of mansplain joke from Raven to Robin in Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
That's true. I feel like at some point Teen Titans Go must have used the phrase Robin-splain.
Yeah. For sure.
Or Dick-splain, but that might be a different thing entirely. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't necessarily land entirely for me, but I was like, I ended up giving it 3 stars on my movie rating app. I was like, it's fine. I think it's a decent kids movie, and I think in the day I was partly like, okay, you know what? This movie wasn't made for you and I, and that's fine.
But it should have been.
Here
are my comparisons and why I think this movie doesn't do well.
Okay.
Because as we've made this joke a couple times, Illumination just put out their own remake of a classic story in this past 6 months with the Addams Family.
Oh, which I didn't bother seeing because it looked awful.
Which again, I honestly, I think the Addams Family did their source material more service than what this did.
I mean, that's not a stretch considering like I don't think they did a particularly good. I think they did 15 minutes of great Scooby content and then skip the rest of it.
Yeah. I was comparing it to that, and then weirdly enough, I was comparing it a lot to the Sonic movie we just got.
Oh, okay, which I haven't seen yet.
And I think, I mean, this is more praise to the actor than hurt to the movie. I think a live action Jim Carrey was more cartoonish than this cartoon Dick Dastardly.
Well, now you're going after Dick Dastardly, and I have a problem with that. I love Dick Dastardly.
I did too, but I feel like I missed his hat. I missed his outfit.
He has a hat. That's right. I forgot he had a hat.
You forgot he had a hat?
I love that sets you off.
Because his look was off. His look was so generic villain that, like, the fact that, you know, a live action character is more of a cartoon character than this character, like, that was a little frustrating.
I would agree with you that his look is a little bit generic, but I thought at least his characterization was fun.
Yes. Oh God, I had so many problems with this film.
So okay, here's why I'm kind of giving this movie a bit of a pass.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think it succeeds at what it was attempting to do. I just don't necessarily love what it was attempting to do, but like it hangs on its own as a like Hanna-Barbera universe intro movie with familiar characters. Like I don't think like it is not, I think, what either of us were hoping for or expected, but I wouldn't call this movie a mess. Like it holds together even if it's not what we wanted, because it's ultimately just like meant for kids and to introduce them to these characters. And so like that's why I'll give it a pass, is that it's fine. Like it works as a film. It has things that I don't love about it, but I can also totally see why some people watch this and go like, oh yeah, like I really enjoyed it because it's either what they wanted it to be or because they were surprised. Like I know I'll get to like Ted's review, but like he liked it because he liked that it wasn't what he was expecting it to be. Like, you know, I just rewatched, as I referenced last week, Star Wars Episode 9, which is actually a like Nestle made incoherent, stupid film. To me, that's not what this is. This is totally serviceable. It's just not great. So I'll give it a pass.
Yeah. I think if they would have done some sort of even just changing the title to not be not call it a Scooby-Doo film. Do the same thing they did with Birds of Prey, the Emancipation of One Fantastic Harley Quinn or whatever the title. Fantabulous. I was so close. Like just even that of like have, you know, what's the comic called Future Quest, which is the Hanna-Barbera's comic verse. Yeah. You know, just call it something grander, Future Quest, Scooby-Doo tries to get a fucking sponsorship.
I think ultimately, because I agree with you that it was, calling it Scoob is sort of a misdirect of in a lot of ways. And I think it's interesting you also reference like Birds of Prey, because I think those are two movies that were definitely trying to sell the movie on a particular thing to some degree at the expense of what made it more interesting to, say, like a more established fan. Like, I think you and I were probably both more excited to go into Birds of Prey because we like the Birds of Prey as a team and we want to see those characters maybe more so than Harley, because we have Harley that we love in Batman animated series and in her new show. And so I was like, oh, like I don't necessarily need like a whole Harley movie. I would love to see Birds of Prey, because Birds of Prey never get any sort of screen time and love, right? But, I have other friends, like my friend Sav, who loves Birds of Prey because it is really a Harley movie and loves the Harley aspect of it. And I think something similar happened here where they had to hang it on something familiar, and so they hung it on Scoob, and it just wasn't actually really a Scooby-Doo movie. And I think that just speaks to the fact that studios now have to play safe bets. They always have to play safe bets because risky things are exactly that, risky. And because so many of their, like, the revenue streams these rely upon, like, home video being a huge element of that. And also, box office take, those are diminishing. So now when they put out a movie, they have to bank on it being successful. And so it's kind of one of those things where, if, like I said, if this movie spins off into multiple things, I will forgive this movie's existence because it opened the door for that sort of stuff.
Well, it depends on how good the spinoffs are. If we get another, like, fucking bullshit, I don't even want to be mad about this because I would love to see Al Kabong and, like, anyone else. Like,
Al Kabang
and Underdog and Hong Kong Phooey team up. Like, I wouldn't be mad about that at all.
Until it comes out, then you're mad about it.
Yeah, until it comes out. But yeah, I mean, I don't want this to be the bar, and that's my fear with the other films. Is like, okay, we did this and we kind of cut some corners and we still made this much money, which means we can cut the same corners in the next film and still make the same amount of money.
I don't think they saw it as cutting corners, though.
Well, I see it as that.
Well, I know. That's why I'm continuing to play devil's advocate. But I mean, okay, so here's ultimately what it comes down to. Like, because I totally understand why you didn't like it, being the diehard Scooby fan that you are.
Not a diehard, just a good fan, just a decent, above average fan.
I mean,
I'm not going to go and enter any, like, Scooby-Doo trivia contest at Comic-Con.
I mean, wait, have you done that before?
No, I've only entered Avatar trivia contests.
I mean, if there were a Scooby-Doo trivia contest, would you enter it?
No, I'd watch. I wouldn't enter.
Okay. I'm just going to say that, maybe most evidence has supported you being a kind of a hardcore fan, but no, we'll take your word for it, Cameron. We'll totally take your word for it. You're just a totally casual fan that was
slightly
upset when Shaggy wasn't portrayed accurately. We'll just take it
slightly above average fan.
So here's ultimately what it comes down to. Would you recommend this movie to somebody else? Like, if they just wanted a fun movie to be distracted by for a little bit, like they like Scooby, but they're not necessarily like big fans of the show or anything like that. They're just looking for something fun to watch, possibly their kids. Would you recommend it to them?
No.
Okay. See, I
would recommend any of the other straight to DVD Scooby-Doo films, starting with Scooby-Doo Cyber Chase. No, even before that. Starting with Scooby-Doo Zombie Island from 1997 or 98.
Total low-key Scooby-Doo fan over here.
I would start there and then have them watch all of the straight-to-DVD films up through. I'll include this one because it's actually a pretty good one. Up through when John Cena helps out the Scooby Gang.
Fantastic.
So we got Cyber Chase in there, which I still think is maybe the peak of Scooby-Doo movies. We have the one where they go to Hawaii and there's the volcano monster.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, what are the other ones? Alien Invasion is a great one from 2001 or 2002. Yeah, I would give them this catalog before giving them this, and then obviously the first and only the first live action film.
No, you got to include the second one, the superior film. Here's what I'm starting to realize, Cameron. I feel like our episodes are never more contentious than when they were about Scooby-Doo. Maybe we should abandon the DCAU entirely and just really create a podcast just called the Scooby-Doo Bait.
No, because I would get so angry. Like, I'm already exhausted right now.
It would end up with you in a mental institute.
Yeah, I'm actually already so tired.
What I love is what would happen if you and I started a podcast about Scooby-Doo is you would eventually morph into a Scooby-Doo villain. Like, you would eventually realize the only way to like ease the pain would be to try and sabotage Warner Brothers by becoming like the ghost of Jack Warner haunting the lot.
Yeah.
And systematically trying to destroy any and all Scooby-Doo new content.
Yes, exactly.
Now I kind of want to see this happen. All right.
I'm going to list off a couple of the references that I caught.
Okay.
There was a very, very small one in the background, and I knew I recognized the character, but I had to Google who it was. Mm-hmm. There's a billboard for Squiddly Diddly.
Oh, okay. The name sounds familiar.
He was an octopus from the 1960s Hanna-Barbera-verse. As we mentioned before, there was a Hong Kong Phooey arcade cabinet, a Hex Girls poster, Banana Splits poster, and a Frankenstein Jr. arcade cabinet. Mm-hmm. In the end credits, which I think was kind of their opening to the grander universe, we had an Adam Ant cameo, who I'm not a big fan of this version of the costume.
Oh, yeah.
He looks just like Ant-Man.
He did look just like Ant-Man. I was thrown a little bit.
We saw some Jabberjaw in there. We saw Captain Caveman come back. We saw Grape Ape. We had a Johnny Quest little cameo in there.
Yeah. Now, okay, so because we saw Dr. Quest, and then I feel like a couple panels later, they showed someone getting taken away in handcuffs, and it looked a lot like Dr. Quest.
Is that what happens in Johnny Quest? Doesn't his dad get taken, and that's why he's...
But also, like, that would imply that he's the villain. I may have missed...
No, I mean, no, there's stories where the dad gets captured, and it's, he's unrightfully detained.
Okay, I mean, he was getting captured by Scooby and the gang. But I
think there was someone else.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense if it was with him.
We saw in the background the actual Dick Dastardly and Muttley outfits, and then another Frankenstein Jr. cameo in there.
We got a great moment when they're in like the was it Messick Mountain where the Captain Caveman lives, where someone like this is gonna sound strangely phrased, blows a turtle like it was a trumpet.
Oh, and
as a
very,
reference to the Flintstones
fashion. There was another Flintstones reference that I'm trying to remember.
Apparently there's a porch, like silhouette porches of Fred and Wilma in the haunted house at the beginning.
Yeah. There was something. Someone is named, or someone yells out a name that is Wilma's maiden name.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's like Rock Hall or something weird like that.
Oh, okay. I mean, look, they packed in some like fun little nods here and there.
Oh, and then at the end we had a reference to Ghost of Captain Cutler, who was one of the great Scooby-Doo We're, Are You villains.
Oh yeah, was he the guy in the diving suit?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, great episode. Mm-hmm. Classic. Okay. Well, Cameron, do you feel like you've gotten out your frustrations?
No, but I don't have anything else to say.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and land this Blue Falcon then?
I want to that was one of the really cool things that I forgot to mention. The way the Blue Falcon lands is actually really cool in the movie.
Oh yeah, it's got like
it's got like actual Falcon. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of pop out at the beginning there. No, it's like it's totally fine.
I want to rewrite it.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
Well, you have time. You have time during lockdown, Cameron. You can rewrite your fan spec.
My ideal intro to the Hanna-Barbera verse.
You can start your hashtag release the Scooby cut.
Yeah. Do you even start I understand why they start with Scooby. Like, I'm trying to think if there was another place you could start this universe and like have
right.
Scooby be the big. Okay, we'll get into that later.
I'll let you ponder that, and maybe we'll do a segment on the next episode. But like I said, I did reach out to my my good friend Ted, because I know he was super excited for this movie, and I'm like, okay, let me get another person's perspective in case either one of us hated it. And he said, and I'm not saying this to start an argument, Cameron. I'm just
I'm
putting
fucking putting the boxing gloves on right now.
Another person's opinion. He said, I loved it. I liked that they got all the fan service out of the way and then played against expectations. It did something new. The opening sequence was flawless, which I 100% agree with. He said, and though there wasn't a big mystery to solve, it focused on the relationship of Scooby and Shaggy, integrated a big world and built on where it could go. We've seen plenty of Scooby movies where they rip the mask off at the end. This was something bigger, and I would agree with all of those statements. He also said that Tracy Morgan as Captain Caveman was great, but they needed to give him more. So, yeah, I would agree with all of those things. That it's at the end of the day, it's totally fine. So, but I'm very curious if anyone who actually listened to this also watched the movie. And I would really love to know what other people thought about this. I think it's going to be an interesting film in a lot of ways in terms of what comes, like where it could possibly lead with Scooby-Doo as a franchise, as a property, also just in terms of the rest of Hanna-Barbera.
What is the next Hanna-Barbera thing you would want to come out of this?
Yeah, I mean, because they have a huge back catalog.
Well, I'm also asking that to you, Chris.
Oh,
as
what
well
do
as
I
the
want to
fans,
see?
yes.
Because we've talked about Hanna-Barbera a little bit here and there. The show that I've probably seen the most outside of Scooby-Doo would have been Josie and the Pussycats in space, specifically the version of them in space.
Okay.
I think that could be something kind of fun to do. I've always loved Johnny Quest, though. I feel like Johnny Quest is a property that they have tried to make work a few times and never really got it off the ground. So I would love to see them do something with that.
I agree. I feel Johnny Quest is a better glue franchise than Scooby is.
Yeah.
Because Johnny Quest, they can go anywhere. You can have an episode of them or a movie of them in space, them underwater.
Yeah.
Where Scooby is kind of landlocked and also in kind of like a specific decade.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Johnny Quest has the advantage of being able to like go anywhere and do anything and see anyone, and so that broader world allows them to have more things pop up here and there. So, but also I really love Underdog, so I would love to see like another.
Did you ever watch the live action one?
I didn't. I couldn't do it because I like Jason Lee a lot as an actor. I couldn't watch a movie that didn't have like that distinct Underdog voice to it. Just didn't work for me. But no, I mean there are definitely things I would like to see come out of this. But yeah, I would love to hear what other people thought. So if you have your thoughts on Scooby-Doo, if you're more in my kind of ambivalent camp, or if you're more in Ted's positive camp, or if you're more Cameron's rage-filled pit of despair.
Yes.
You
ruined my weekend.
Yes. You could write to us at TimmTalkPod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gmail. And
wait, I forgot I had a note from...
God damn it, Cameron. I'm on a roll here.
I apologize. I forgot. Maddie messaged me.
I'm wrapping this shit up.
And he said on the DC Universe app, basically every Scooby-Doo comic that's ever been out is up for free right now.
Oh, nice.
So if anyone has, it was on DC Universe, it's free. And read DC, Comixology, Amazon Kindle, and Apple Books. They are free until September 7th if you want to check out some Scooby-Doo comics.
Oh, nice. Except for that Scooby Apocalypse comic is supposed to be really good.
Yeah. Was that on there?
I don't know.
Double check this. But yeah, that's thanks, Maddie.
Okay. Can I finish now? Can I be done?
Yeah, sure. One more. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, you can find me at Lordifer on Twitter and Instagram. Cameron, where can they find you and send you messages of condolence?
If you want to send some spec scripts, some better ideas of Hanna-Barbera stuff, I really think an anthology should happen over a whatever. We'll get into that later.
I don't disagree with you. That's a good idea.
You can find my art at Cameron.Dexter, and you can find my face at CamDexter_Adventures.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, thanks for going with us on this bonus episode, our first ever and possibly last ever full episode dedicated to Scooby-Doo. But we will be back. We'll be back next week with our 150th official episode. With it's League of Their Own, right? I think it's
yes. We're going slightly out of order.
Yes.
by one episode.
Yeah, so we can do kind of a bigger episode for our 150th, which will be very,
and it's our
very
podcast.
fun.
We can do what we want, so fuck you.
Exactly. I love it. Years from now, when we're visiting you in an insane asylum, people ask me, like, Chris, what was it? What finally pushed Cameron over the edge? I'm like, well, it was when they released Scoob during the middle of the quarantine. Cameron just couldn't handle it anymore. Just his whole world came crumbling down.
Yeah. At least I have Avatar back on Netflix.
At least you have Avatar. Maybe that'll bring you back to life. So, but until then, thanks everyone for listening. And go enjoy your lives.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye.